If you watched the news lately, you would know that Hindus in Canada are under threat. They are being asked to leave the country. They have been insulted time and again. Their cultural religious identity has been threatened. Their temples have been defaced, vandalized. They have had to face not only desecrated places of worship, but also death threats, rape threats, and relentless intimidation. But what stings the most is the sheer hypocrisy of the Canadian government. While they claim to stand against hatred, their actions tell a completely different story. The situation was bad before, but it has now escalated to an alarming degree. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Today, in the aftermath of hateful videos circulating online, the Canadian government is in damage control mode. They boldly say that there is no place for hate in their country. The irony, however, is hard to ignore. It's as if they've unleashed a demon that India had warned them about repeatedly for years, even decades. Canada chose to turn a blind eye to the growing menace in its own backyard. Instead of taking decisive action against this monster, their Prime Minister opted to indulge in personal politics instead of paying attention to the stern warnings of a friendly nation. The consequences of this foolishness are now being felt by an entire community. Hindus in Canada are grappling with the repercussions of a monster of their government's own creation. A Frankenstein's monster, if you will. The Canadian government seems oblivious to the hateful forces on its soil, and on this episode of Gravitas Plus, we'll provide you a step-by-step account of the experiences of Hindus in Canada. In a recent turn of events, members of Hindu Forum Canada penned a letter to Canada's Minister of Public Safety, Dominic LeBlanc. They are pleading for the security and support of the Hindu community. Their appeal came in the wake of direct threats from Khalistani elements which are operating with impunity on Canadian soil. They highlighted deep concerns about recent statements made by a designated terrorist. I'm talking about Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. These statements urged all Indo-Canadian Hindus to leave the country, an alarming consequence of the diplomatic tensions between India and Canada over the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. On your screen is a face well known in India, but not for any noble reason. He is the president of the so-called Sikhs for Justice, or SFJ, a Khalistani organization thriving within Canadian borders. What's the goal? To carve out a new Sikh nation, slicing it right out of Indian territory. The SFJ, as it calls itself, conducts several referendums, but their track record is tainted with violence and acts of terrorism. Pannu, emboldened by the reckless statement by Prime Minister Trudeau, took to a new video to launch an attack on Hindu Canadians, urging them to abandon Canada and go to India. Adding to the gravity of the situation, Canadian MP Chandra Arya made a statement on Thursday. He acknowledged that extremist elements were actively attacking and threatening Hindu Canadians, putting pressure on them to return to India. In a plea for calm and vigilance, he implored all Hindu Canadians to report any untoward incidents to law enforcement agencies. What's noteworthy here is that Arya is an Indo-Canadian leader, a member of the Liberal Party of Canada, the same party which Trudeau belongs to. He expressed his bewilderment. He says, and I quote, "I can't understand how the glorification of terrorism or a hate crime targeting a religious group is allowed in the name of freedom of speech and expression." There's more. He says there would be an outrage in Canada if a white supremacist attacked any group of racialized Canadians, asking them to get out of our country. But apparently, this Khalistani leader can get away with this hate crime. And now Canada has condemned the offensive and hateful videos. They have termed it an affront to all Canadians and the values they hold. A bit rich coming from Canada, isn't it? The ministry has also urged the Canadians to respect each other and follow the rule of law. I ask you, where was this respect when these pro-Khalistanis attacked Hindu temples? Where was this so-called respect when they spray-painted the Indian Prime Minister's name, a democratically elected leader's name, outside temples in Canada? In the past few years, Khalistani extremists have attacked Hindu temples in Canada almost every other week. Let's be clear, India has expressed its disappointment and anguish with Ottawa. And despite that, these anti-India forces continue to propagate violence, hatred, and secessionism. India has requested to consider the effects of all these activities on bilateral ties. As recently as August, Khalistani terrorists attacked yet another temple. This time, the act of vandalism took place in Surrey, near the Canada-United States border. The Khalistani terrorists also placed posters at the entrance of the temple, aiming to sow fear within the Hindu community. The poster advocates for a referendum pertaining to the assassination of Hardeep Nijjar. Before that, on June 18th, a pro-Khalistani Twitter handle, Sikh Narrative, shared a video of different Hindu religious sites across Toronto, where posters of Khalistani terrorist Talvinder Singh Parmar were placed. Now let's take a moment to remember who Talvinder Singh Parmar was. He was a sinister mastermind behind one of the most heinous acts of terrorism in history, the Air India Flight 182 bombing, an incident which claimed 329 lives. But this is not an isolated incident. It's just one chapter in a harrowing series of events where Hindu temples have fallen victim to shocking attacks right on Canadian soil. And if you thought this couldn't get any more disturbing, think again. Just last year, India's counter-terrorism agency, the National Investigative Agency, or NIA, said that the very same Khalistani terrorist who is at the center of this diplomatic storm, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, was involved in the chilling attack on a Hindu priest in India. All these events serve as a wake-up call to the unsettling truth. For the sake of quoting a small percentage of voters, Justin Trudeau has made a gamble, a huge gamble, isolating an entire community. In the aftermath of these incidents, one cannot help but question the safety and security of Indians in Canada. It's a troubling scenario where Trudeau's actions have seemingly prioritized the interests of a small fringe element over the well-being of an entire community. With this, he has made Canada officially unsafe for Hindus.